Slide, PBI Pro. Thank you very much all for coming. I think we're expecting a few more people, but we want to get started. So for those of you that are new, the Power BI, Birmingham Power BI user group, we formed late 2022, our first session in February 2023. So it was originally set up by myself, Flavio, who you might have met, John Lunn. We have recently welcomed Adam, Rachel and Sarah into the welcoming team as well, into the organising team, sorry. So yeah, we meet up in Birmingham once a month. The first Wednesday of the month in the city of Birmingham. So why attend the event? So great way to network, grow your skills and discover opportunities. Amongst you can share best practices, practical takeaways and share success stories. Another good reason to come is give yourself that professional edge in the market as well, learning from each other. So talking shop for a small moment. If anybody wants to speak about hiring or even looking for a new role, get some market intel, if you want to speak about anything like that at all, please do come and grab me. So once I'm finished, I'll hand over to Ashley. So Ashley will be covering CI/CD and Power BI. When I have a short break, we'll have drinks and pizza. Hand over to Jake Buddy. So Jake will be doing SVGs in Power BI for the second part of the session. So 6th of August, we'll actually be moving to KPMG. We are just confirming those speakers at the moment. So keep an eye out on the meter. We'll make sure to get that out as soon as we can. We'll be back here in September, where we've got Danny O'Neill, who'll be doing onboarding users with built-in tutorials, and Joe Billingham, who'll be doing the DAX speed blueprint. So venues and speakers as ever. If anyone knows anyone that would be interested in speaking at these events, if anyone, as you've seen from the lightning talks as well, if anyone likes to take a stab at doing one of their first talks, speaking about their own experiences, please do let us know. And then venues as well. We're always looking to mix up the venue. So if anyone knows wherever we can host, please do let us know. I will just hand over to Sarah for this because there's an upcoming event to share with you guys.
Yeah, so Joe, who's going to talk in September, is a local sort of expert in Power BI and Fabric. And last year, him and his colleague ran FabFest, and a couple of us went. Anyone, hands up, anyone went? And it's free, and it's on a Thursday, which is great because I live free events, but I don't always want to give up my weekend to go to them. And it's at Millennium Point. It's quite small, so there's only about 100 people going. Sign up now, get it in the calendar, make sure you go along. If your boss doesn't know about it, it's free training. Why wouldn't you be allowed to go? And it's really good. It's all Fabric based, so yes, there will be probably a bit of Power BI content, but it's more around Fabric. But yeah, I'd really recommend going. And yeah.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, on that note, yeah, thank you all so much for coming. And I'll hand you over to Ashley.
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Ashley. Thank you for having me. I'm going to speak about CI/CD and Power BI, which might not sound like the most exciting topic, but hopefully by the end of this, you'll be sort of understanding why we need to think about it. I'm going to try and do this from basics. So a lot of stuff to cover. If anybody has any questions at any point, please do shout out. But yeah, but quite a lot to cover. So let's just jump in. So starting off, I'm going to give a bit of introduction to me. So I started out as a trainee accountant back in 2017, and then somebody in the data team showed me Power BI, and then there I am ever since. So I moved into Power BI in 2019. Then I moved again, worked for a university, big organization, not the most mature data, but got better as I was there, which was nice. And now I work as a senior consultant for, you guessed it, Advancing Analytics is the logo big enough down there. Yeah, I also co-run this group in Bristol, or the version of this group in Bristol. So if you're ever down in Bristol, please do come along. We're always looking for speakers as well. So if you're speaking here and want to come down to speak with us, like Jake is speaking in a couple of weeks at our group down there. So please do come along. Another 3 group. But why am I saying that? Well, this is roughly what my career actually looks like. And I'm going to try and focus on this sort of this box here, and use that to sort of explain what CI/CD happened. Like options are in Power BI. So sort of stepping through from beginner through into sort of more advanced techniques. So hopefully you'll be able to see sort of why I've learned these things over the years, and you can sort of take something away, like whatever stage of your career you think you're at. Hopefully there'll be something useful here. And I'm defining these based on a talk that Flavio gave at my group a few months ago, last year. So yeah, like, please do come to our group if you're in Bristol. But yeah, let's start from the beginning and sort of explore why like just hitting publish might not be the best idea all of the time. So at the first company I worked for, I helped install Power BI. I was the only developer. It was just me. I made the case. I rolled it out. All of the models and reports were built by me to start with. And that meant that I could just whack the PBIXs in a SharePoint file, and that was all the source control I needed. And I could just hit the publish button and put the report into the final version that the end users would use, because it was all me, so I knew what was going on. Except I didn't. Like, it's really difficult to review your own work when it's just you. So that meant that there were issues. Sometimes I put the wrong version of the file into production, or I wouldn't have refreshed the data right, or everyone's probably had an experience like that at some point in their careers. It's a pretty common thing. So as the development team of our company grew, we ended up being 3, it was really clear that this just doesn't work when it's more than just one person. Not that it even really works very well when it is just one person. So why? Well, human error. Like, we all make mistakes, and when you've got more people building things, it's more likely there's going to be a mistake. The testing wasn't easy, so even with multiple people, we could test each other's work a bit, but it's very manual. Like, it wasn't very consistent, and then there was no real formal process. So, like, when you deployed something, you didn't have to test it. You didn't have to get it approved. It just went in. And then it was really difficult to reverse the changes. And the reason I've got a little sad face down there was because it's not a good experience for the end users, right? They end up with something that's broken, doesn't work, and it's really easy to lose trust with your stakeholders. And once you've lost the trust, very difficult to get it back. I remember hearing the phrase, the data's wrong. And that was it. Took about a year for me to get that trust back from that. Not that the data was even wrong. They just didn't agree with the numbers. So that's sort of why just hitting publish, working by yourself, like, or just having no version control, there's so many things that can go wrong. So I will say that before I left that place, we did get a little better. I'm not going to just say that they've always been terrible for years. But a few years back, I moved to a university. I got access to Power BI Premium and started really becoming more of an intermediate level developer. And that's when I first heard of the phrase CI/CD, right? And why it's important. And we're going to cover all of these things in a little detail, or a little bit of detail. Hopefully, you'll be able to understand sort of some of the things that you can learn when you first get access to Premium, or even if you don't have Premium and you're just sort of in that sort of middle stage of your career. So what is CI/CD? Well, it stands for Continuous Integration and Continuous Deployment. And it really comes from like software engineering, really, but data engineers have started taking it on more and more in the last few years. And the idea is it's about sort of automating that process of making changes, storing them properly, and then releasing them. So the idea of when you get a new request, you start by planning it, you build the code, you test it, then you release it, deploy it, and you maintain it, and that in turn will end up leading into this like continuous loop of doing everything well. So it's about automation of those various different elements. So automated version control, good change management processes, and just making sure that when something gets into production, it's been tested, everybody's happy, it's not going to break, so that you can make sure that you know what your end users are getting their hands on. And so I'm going to talk about some of the like sort of native features in Power BI. So the first one, about a year and a half, 2 years ago maybe, they introduced workspace Git integration. So if you've got a Power BI or a Fabric workspace, you can connect that to a Git repository. Git is an amazing tool that really helps you to sort of control your files. So you can make sure that there's pull request processes there. So when somebody wants to make a change, they tell you they have to submit it, somebody has to approve it, and then it gets pushed into the branch that they're moving something into. So you develop something by yourself, you're happy with it, you make a commit, you make a pull request to pull it into the main branch, and there it is. Somebody has to review it before it goes into production. And you can set this up with Power BI to link to a Git repository. So all of those PBIXs, all of the semantic models and reports you've got, also all of the things that you do in Fabric, so your notebooks, your lake houses, you can make sure that that's linked to a Git repository, and then everything will stay up to date. And sort of linked to this, because Power BI files, like PBXs, are these big monolithic files with lots of things in them that you can't really see without opening in Power BI Desktop. Power BI launched the PBIP file format, or it's also called Power BI project files, or Power BI developer mode. They keep changing the name and keep giving it new names and synonyms. But the idea is it breaks down that big single Power BI file into lots of smaller files. So some for the semantic model, some for the report, and then you can start having multiple people working on the same Power BI report and semantic model at the same time. And I'll give a little bit of a demo of what that actually looks like later. And so the last feature that I sort of picked up from here was deployment pipeline. So deployment pipeline is a tool for moving reports and models through various different stages. So you might set up a development area, a test area, or a production area, all those different workspaces. And as you develop, you can then push from dev to test to prod to have that proper software development lifecycle. So things that will help make sure that your content gets deployed properly as you go through. And I'm going to jump over to a quick little demo of what a deployment pipeline is. So this is Fabric, Power BI, and this is a deployment pipeline. If you've seen them before, they've had a facelift recently, which is what this new thing is here. So they've recently changed the way they look. But the idea is I've got 3 workspaces: development, test, and prod. And they're actually called Ash Demo Dev, Ash Demo Test, and Ash Demo at the end. And you could also have an app over here, or you could have as many of these different workspaces as you want. Set it up however you like. I've seen people who've had 6 different stages. I've seen people who've had 2. As many as you want. But the idea would be from this, as you're sort of looking around, this is the development workspace, and down here is all of the files in it. So you can see there's an old sales report, there's a sales dashboard, and there's a semantic model. If I go to the test area, it's saying that there's a sales dashboard and a sales dashboard semantic model, and they're the same, but there's a report missing, and it's called old sales report. That's what this little plus is here. Or if I go to look at production, well, here there's a report that doesn't exist in the previous stage, and you've got stuff that matches. So if I what I'm going to do, I don't think I actually opened up the file. That was silly. I should have done that before I started. I was meaning to have it open, but what we're going to do is we're going to push a new report into development. I should have opened this before. It's going to take a little time to open. I completely forgot to open this.
Apps to refresh automatically now.
Yeah, so you can link. So I don't think you can get the app to refresh automatically, but you can still deploy content into an app from the production workspace. So you can link it together. So as you push things up, you'll then still have to click the update app button, but if you're adding new content, but I'm pretty sure that if you just push this through, you can get it into an app without that. I haven't tested that, so yeah. So this is what I meant to show you before I opened this up. I've got the version of the report in development, which you can see is just 1 page, and this is the version of the report in test. What I'm going to do is I've got a new version down here, which has got an extra page. So we've got the first page as is, and then the trends, and I'm going to hit publish. I know I said don't hit publish at the start, but we haven't got to the bit where we replaced the publish button yet. So we're just going to hit the publish button, and I'm going to put it into dev. Place the existing report. Publishing. Hopefully this is where this works. Definitely did test it yesterday. There we go, success. So I will go into the dev version, just refresh it, and you should be able to see now you've got the nice navigation bar with the extra page on it, and we can see there's 2 pages. So that's gone into test as you would expect. if I replace the pipeline, refresh the pipeline here, it's going to just load. It's looking, there's still a sales dashboard, there's still a sales dashboard semantic model. The immediate thing to note is there's two there, which means there's two things that it thinks are different. So firstly, it's noticed that there's no changes to the semantic model, but if you can see that down here, it's noticed that there's a change to this report. So what we could do here, and you can give different people access to be able to do this. So you could have all of your developers able to put stuff in here, but only if certain people have been able to put it into here. You can highlight that one, hit deploy, and that's going to update it. Let me just refresh this test version. This is the test workspace version of that report. Hopefully it's worked. Yeah, you can see the little trends page here now. So if I go back to the pipeline, what you'll see when you look at production now is that this is now different from the source. So you can push things up and down. Oh, sorry, well, up mostly. I don't know. I think you can push back down, but I wouldn't suggest it. But you can also set it up so that, for example, when you check this semantic model, when you can set up a rule so that when you push it from development to test, you can change the source from this file to somewhere else. So I could set that to be a different version of the same file. So, or you could change that from one SQL server to another, or whatever you want to do. But you can set that up so that it automatically knows that when I go from dev to test, I can change the data if I want, the data source if you want to. So this is a deployment pipeline. It's the first real step towards having some semblance of proper CI/CD type approaches, like in Power BI. But this still isn't great because it's still got to have somebody push it into dev manually and do these steps across here. You can set up some automation with it. We'll get back to that later. But it's definitely a good first step. So if you're currently pushing things, when you're publishing things straight into production, this is a much better, more robust way to do it. And it is a premium feature, but it will definitely help you out in the future, especially if you set up some controls around who can do that, hitting those buttons that we've just done. I'm going to switch back to my slides.
Just got a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Just trying to think from a production side of things. Is there a way? Is this sort of based off the Kimball method of BI when deployed with this sort of deployment sort of infrastructure?
It can be. You can set this up. There's a number of different ways you can set this up, right? So this is quite a simplistic idea at the moment, but yeah, you can set up a lot of rules around how this changes things. You can control it. It's getting more robust as well as they go. So there's a lot of development going into these from Microsoft, especially as we move towards Fabric. So the same pipelines are designed to also work for data engineering assets, so notebooks and lake houses. So yeah, it is getting more and more attention from Power BI as they go. But yeah, you can definitely set it up in a number of different ways. So that's the deployment pipeline. I think the other thing that I sort of learned other things I learned in this role, this is a bit of a random slide of just things I wanted to mention that didn't really fit in. So Power BI apps, there were already questions about that. Basically, you should serve things out in a Power BI app if you're sending it to an end user rather than giving them a workspace. If you put them into a workspace, there's lots of things in there. It can be really confusing. An app lets you control the experience much better. So really point your end users at an app that's based off of the production workspace. It will just make their life easier, and that makes your life easier as well. Especially now you can control the audiences in apps. When they first launched, they were terrible. Everybody had access to the same everything in an app. Now they've got audiences, so you can have different users able to see different things in the same app. Separating reports and semantic models. So when you first start building, it's a really common thing of every single report you build will have its own semantic model linked to it. So you'll have one report, one model. When you start getting more experienced, it makes much more sense. Build the model once and then build a bunch of reports that connect to that single model. When you build a report that's connected to a single model, that's called a fin report, because the report itself doesn't have any data behind it. It's just a live connection. So as you change things to the semantic model, the thin report will get all of those data changes coming through to it. It's just a live connection. And that can still be import mode, your semantic model. It doesn't mean you have to change to direct query or direct lake. But having the thin report just means that you can build more reports off of a single model and try and reduce the amount of work that goes into creating a Power BI report. Last thing I sort of wanted to mention was this idea of certification and promotion. So you can put a little tag effectively next to your reports if you have access to certification and promotion, which then allow users to see this is a certified semantic model. So you don't get into the case where somebody has, that you've put all of this effort into building this perfect semantic model, a perfect report that's been really heavily tested, and you've called it, I don't know, sales report, and then somebody has come along and just made something shoddily and called it sales report, and you end up with end users going to that one in the wrong way. This is there to help you make sure that you're directing people to the right one, so you can make sure your report ends up being the one that they see without just having to copy and paste the URL. That was the last bit of the intermediate stuff. I'm going to sort of go on to this idea of some of the more advanced techniques. So there was quite a lot there in the intermediate stuff that I didn't explore in too much detail. But yeah, if you're interested in it, there's a lot of really good speakers in the space who will talk about this kind of stuff. I'm going to bring up one of them in a minute, but I'm going to skip over that slide because I think I'm behind time. But I currently work for a consultancy called Advancing Analytics. We work with large enterprise customers, big retail companies, big financial services companies, sort of thing, people that you'll have heard and have got massive data teams. So what have I learned from that role? Well, working at scale, you need even more robust processes. The client I'm working with at the moment, they've got 3 engineering teams, data engineering teams covering about 40 or 50 developers, and they've got 3 different Power BI teams, which is about 20 different Power BI, like central Power BI people, and then they've got people out in the business building Power BI. So they've probably got 60, 70, 80 people building Power BI reports in their business. Everything gets really bloody complicated if you don't do it properly at that scale, because you just can't manage anything. There's no way one person can know what's going on everywhere unless you've got proper processes. So yeah, another key thing I learned, Tabular Editor. It's a bit to the side of this talk. There is a reason there that I'm talking about it, and I'll cover some more on that later. DevOps pipelines and the Fabric APIs. So we're going to cover some of this stuff in this section. But first, Tabular Editor. If you take one thing away from this talk, it's not CIC. It's not about CI/CD. It's about Tabular Editor, right? If you've not heard of it, it is amazing. It is the biggest productivity boost that I've had since I started working in Power BI. I have to sneak it in to every talk that I do, just because I'm such a massive fan of it. It's actually the first time I've spoken without having a Tabular Editor shirt on. I don't work for them. I'm just such a massive fanboy of theirs. But there's a free version. Like, you can use the free version, and it's so good. It's got so many cool features. And Microsoft are actually now recommending it as part of DP600. I was talking to someone from Microsoft the other week, and they were jumping up and down, like they'd seen me talk about Tabular Editor before, and they were so excited that it's been covered. So yeah, Tabular Editor. And the main reason I love Tabular Editor, and this does sort of loosely tie to CI/CD, is Best Practice Analyzer. So this is a tool built into it that lets you scan your semantic model and look for all of the issues in it. So that there's a list of best practice rules that Michael Kowalski from Microsoft published. And they're things like don't have too much Power Query, or don't have columns that you're not going to use. Don't like have a lack of have a format string. Sorry. Format your fields correctly, all sorts of things. And they've got different severities. It's really small, this picture, but some of them, there's 2s here mostly and 1s. There can be a 3, which is if you publish something with a 3 in it. Don't do that. But what you can do with Best Practice Analyzer is scan your semantic model and look for all of the problems in it. And it'll tell you what the problem is. And there's even a nice little handy apply fix for some of them. So this set is available in MDX. That's a performance tweak. That field is basically like, so if you've hidden a field in Power BI, there's an equivalent field for hiding it in Excel that you don't see through the Power BI UI, but if you have it set on, it makes your Power BI reports run a bit slower. So having that turned off is a really good idea, and they'll just let you click one button and sort it, right? It's a really good tool, really worth doing. You can go and check all of your there's tools now that let you run this across every semantic model in your estate, so you can see who's publishing stuff with errors in it. I'm going to talk a bit more about that later. I talked about the Power BI PBIP file earlier. I'm going to show you. I still haven't showed you it. I should have that demo earlier in the slide, but I wanted to introduce the Tabular Editor format. So PBIP split your big Power BI report into lots of little files. Tabular Editor also can do that, but it can do it better than Tyndall, which is the Power BI, or at least in my opinion, better than Tyndall, which is Microsoft's way of doing it. So PBIP is great, but Tabular Editor's save to folder is so much better in my opinion. So this is a semantic model from Tabular Editor's perspective, from its save to file format. So you can see you've got tables, you can click into that, and that's a list of all your tables. And then you can go into sales, and you can see a bit more information. You go to columns. That's every single column in that one table of my semantic model. And it's all of the information about each of those is stored in a single file. That feels like a lot of files and a lot going on, but when you combine that with Git, you don't have to build each file individually. You build that in the same way you normally would, but you're just saving it down in this format. And then when somebody needs to make a change to order quantity as a field, or if you've got a measure, you can change it really quickly. And it means that you can have different people changing different bits of your semantic model or different measures all at the same time.
How do you find enterprise customers like using Microsoft? They don't like using preview features. They don't. Tyndall do that.
It depends customer to customer. Some of them aren't massive fans. Some of them have already got Tabular Editor 3 licenses for all of their employees. So it really depends. This is my preferred option. Tyndall is great. This is just slightly better. And when you I think when you can show them why there's an issue with just having, so a Tyndall file would have a file for each of the, this is a level lower, right? So all of this would be in one Tyndall file. So if you need, actually, let's go to the demo. I can show you why it's more useful and why they can often see use in it.
I like your PBI tool.
Yeah. So this is where is it? No, I've lost my mouse. Here we go. So this is that model that I was just showing you. So it's the same one. You've got the same folders at the top. You've got the same tables. I could even open up the sales folder and you could see the columns like we did on that slide. I'm going to instead go to the measures. So this is every single measure in that report, and there's quite a lot of them. And this is the profit measure. So you can see up here, the DAX expression is total sales amount minus total product cost. There's a display folder, there's lineage tags, there's a format string. If I went to quantity, you can see the actual DAX there is just a pretty simple sum. But I've also got things like calculating for the previous year using a time intelligence folder. If you had, I don't know, we've got lots of different measures in here. Maybe somebody gets a task because there's a bug in the year-to-date total order quantity, so they're going to go fix that. Somebody else has got a different bug which is related to the sales amount. If you were doing that in Tyndall, they couldn't necessarily do that at the same time because they might create a merge conflict because they're working on the same file. This one, 2 different files. So you get much more traceability down to the individual metric of what's changing, why people are changing it.
If you do find a place thing, like you name the measure,
you can find and replace over the whole folder structure. So I can just control H, I think it is. I can't remember which one it is off the shortcut off of here, but I can still do a find and replace over this whole folder, change it across all of the metrics if I wanted to.
Yeah, it's up there.
Is it this one? Yeah.
Isn't it?
This is Visual Studio Code.
Isn't it the offline changes that makes Tabular Editor? Because you apply changes and they're not being refreshed. So like if you're working in desktop, you have to be wait for it to refresh. Whereas in Tabular Editor, you just keep typing in.
Yes, that's really useful. Yeah,
I'm also a bit of a brain gun with Tabular Editor.
Yeah, batch meta editing is really cool. So you can change everything and then click save and it pushes it all in. You can alternatively do all of that in here if you're comfortable working with the JSON. It's a bit more developer-y, which is why I said it's a bit more of an advanced technique. But if you get comfortable, if I need to make a change to a semantic model, like to a measure now, I would just go into one of these files. I wouldn't even open Power BI Desktop. You can do all sorts from here. And there's an equivalent. There's the PBIR file, which is part of PBIT, which is the report version of this. If you're really comfortable with that, I wouldn't suggest doing it for everything, but there's certain changes you can make just by changing that. But I mentioned Tyndall. I think I've got an example of Tyndall somewhere model. Here we go. So the Tyndall equivalent, it's the same semantic model. I would go to the table and there's measures and then, oh, look, how many measures and how big this file is, right? That if you make a change in this, that's really difficult to trace what's going on. Whereas we're changing one single file, like in the other one. We're still changing one single file, but you can see which file you're changing which measure. So it really depends on the customer, but I think there's a clear benefit to that if you've got a gigantic semantic model and lots of stuff going on in it, especially if you're using a single measure table, which, yeah, I think the Tabular Editor version can be much easier to use and understand. I think because it just works in the way that my brain works, at least in terms of thinking about, I've got a measure table and I've got individual measures in it, right? Rather than this, which is I've got a measure table and I've got, where do I put it? Like, so yeah, cool. So that was the Power BI, the Tabular Editor file format. I am behind time. I'm going to have to speed up. This slide was just talking about advanced deployment. So it was a little introduction. I think the only thing from it that's really important is if what comes up next, you really like enjoy it and you want to hear more, the person to go check out is Kev Chan. That's his repo. The QR code will appear at the end again. He is like most of this is heavily inspired by work he's done. He's excellent. I met him at Data Kaylee a couple of weeks ago. He's brilliant. His talks are amazing. If you get a chance to see him and speak, please do. It's really good. DevOps pipelines. This is a bit of a change of topic, but we are coming back to Tabular Editor in a minute. A DevOps pipeline is just a tool for CI/CD. So there's equivalent ones. GitHub does similar things, but Azure DevOps is the Microsoft version. It's basically a tool that lets you, so there's a repo behind it, but there's also like a pipeline here, which is just going to run code for you at certain times connected to your repo. So if you've got think of a repo as a folder, lots of files in it, which could be your semantic model, all of the things I just showed you. A pipeline can sit over the top of that, and when you make a change to that repo, it can realize that and then run some code to do some things, right? And that code can do all sorts of things, but the reason it's useful for Power BI is that it can call the Fabric APIs. So you can start using the pipeline to do things in Fabric when you change reports. Like, so you change a report, you save it, you push it to the repo, pipeline realizes and it goes, right, I'm going to go talk to the Fabric APIs and do this thing over here, whatever you decide you want to do, whether that's deploying it, whether that's refreshing files, whether that's updating things. It can do all sorts. Back to Tabular Editor. And I had to do that. I had to introduce DevOps first because this gets a bit techy at the end. There is an option to deploy a semantic model from Tabular Editor. So you build your semantic model either in Tabular Editor without opening Power BI, or you build it in Power BI and open up Tabular Editor and you use the two in tandem. And then you can click a button in Tabular Editor to deploy the content and it pops out in your workspace. And the really cool thing about that is you can deploy a semantic model without deploying a report. So if you're doing that thing of splitting reports and semantic models, well, you can now deploy a semantic model without needing to also deploy the report that Power BI would automatically create and hit publish, even if that report is blank. But you can do that automatically. You can set it up to do that. And the reason I had to use, say, like Azure DevOps was because Tabular Editor has this cool thing called the CLI. It's a command line interface. Basically, anything you do in Tabular Editor, you can get it to do it from writing a line of code. So every single action you take in Tabular Editor has an equivalent sort of line, a script that you can do. And you can use that because it's code. You can use that in Azure DevOps. So this is from Tabular Editor themselves. They talk about their ideal deployment approach for semantic models. And what this is effectively saying is, when you make a change to your repo, to a semantic model, push it into your repo, you do your pull request, it goes into the right branch, etc., then this is automatically going to download Tabular Editor. It's going to run Best Practice Analyzer for that semantic model you've got, and it's going to stop the whole thing if you've got problems with your semantic model, if you wanted to. And you can tell it how severe the problem needs to be to stop it, but it can just stop, so you don't deploy something that's broken. And it can do all sorts of other things here as well. So this is like checking that the source system that you're pointing it to or repointing it to exists, etc., etc. There's all sorts of things, but this is Tabular Editor's sort of recommended thing. So there's a blog down here to read if you're interested in this. Link will appear again at the end. I think I'm still
Okay.
okay. Cool. Still got another demo to go. So hopefully, Fabric APIs, I sort of mentioned before, let you do anything in Fabric programmatically. You can get information about some content, or you can change things in your content. It does require coding skill. So I use Python, but if you're not familiar with coding, then maybe, yeah, talk to somebody, but there are other options there. So Python is the standard sort of approach nowadays, but you can use things like PowerShell or other scripting languages as well. If you're interested in the Fabric API, lots to read, lots of content out there in the world, but I'm trying to point you in the right places. This is how you would make the first Fabric API call. It steps you through it. You can copy bits of code as well, sort of see how that goes. See someone's taking a script, like taking a link. So I will wait. All of the links will appear at the end again. So I can't show you the code of how this works because it's my company's IP, but I can show you an idea of what you can use the Fabric API to do in this space. So I think I've got this one open and ready to go. I have got this report here, which is a nice PBIX file. Oh no, it's a PBIP file, sorry. You see it says project at the top. And I have already deployed it into my workspace here. That's the same one. What can I do here? Well, I'm going to change this. Maybe we're going to change this to hashtag PBI Brum. Maybe we're going to change the color. Colors, they keep moving things around. Which one do you want me to go for, just to show that I'm doing this live? Pink, this one? Okay, cool. We're going to make it pink. I'm going to hit save up here. And this version of the report is saved. You could have it saved anywhere. I've got it currently just saved in a folder on my drive because I can't show the full working version. So I'm showing you a sort of funny one, but you could have this saving to a repo. So you could have this saving to GitHub or to an ADO, wherever you want to put it, But what I'm going to do, I'm not hitting the publish button, right? The publish button is there. I'm not going to hit it. What I'm going to do instead is bring up oh, it's not here. Where is it? To other screen. Okay. So I'm going to go and run a script. So this is the sample report. That report is here. That is the report. All of the files of it are in here. So I could go in and show you the definition, and this is the pages and all of the specific visuals. And this is PBIP format. So this is Microsoft's file format for reports. But if I just go back, example report, I've got a little script here. I'm just going to hit run. Hopefully that's going to appear on the right screen. It's not, so I'll have to drag it across. So this is authenticating, and it's found the right report and it's updated it. So if I go back to Power BI now and refresh this, woo, pink. Didn't hit the publish button. I created my own publish button. But the reason that's important is because it's all code, right? So now, instead of having, you can't automate clicking that publish button unless you, I don't know, hire some monkeys and tell them to press the button every so often. You can write some code and get ADO to run that. So, yeah, and just to show you as well, this is replacing a report. But if I go to the the workspace, which this one is in, I can delete it. Where is the delete? Here, delete, just to prove this will work. That report no longer exists. If I run the script again, it will redeploy it. This one, let's put it on the wrong screen again because it likes doing that. This time it's worked out that there's no report there. See from the no report ID, it's created it. So if I refresh, it's there, and you open it up again, and that's the same report we just changed. So what's going on here? What is this doing? Well, it's doing quite a lot of things, but effectively, I've got the report saved as a PBIP, and I've run the code. You've seen me do that bit, all right? What's the code doing? Well, firstly, it's going and logging into Power BI, all right? The blog that I told you about earlier will show you how to do that. Then it's getting the workspace name, converting the workspace name into an ID. So if you're like me, your workspace names will be something like #dev, like demo or whatever it is, as a phrase, a word, human language. It's not how Power BI sees it. There's a string like underneath it called a GUID. That's your workspace ID. And you can use the Power BI APIs, or basically the same thing, you connect in the same way, but you can use that to work out from a name which ID is it. You can do the same with a semantic model, though it's called data set because semantic models used to be called data sets. You can do the same for a report. So I'm just going through and saying, I've connected to Power BI, I'm checking for the workspace, I'm checking for the data set, I'm checking for the report. This bit is a bit confusing. I've got another slide on that next, but what I'm doing here is turning my Power BI report, all of those files, into a single JSON packet which is converted into base 64, which is awful. You can't read it, but there's Python scripts that will do that for you. And then you saw this. If it's new, it's going to deploy it for the first time. If it already exists, it's just updating the one that exists there. That's actually two different APIs. So yeah, it works out whether the report is new here, and then it uses it over here by saying, right, if it's new, I'm going to use this API. If it's old, I'm going to use this one. That's what it's doing as a sort of flow. I said I'd talk about definitions. I've already shown you that a Power BI report in PBIR is just a series of files. So your big PBIX is now all of these different files. Ignore this bit down here. That's a semantic model. I'm just looking at the report. And a report definition is just a representation of this in a different format that's less human readable, but more computer readable. And so this is directly a picture from Microsoft's website. And this is what a report definition looks like. There's an API you could call to go and check out any of the reports you've currently got in service to see what that report definition looks like. But if you look carefully, these are very similar things. So you can see definition dash report JSON. Well, there's a definition report JSON file here. And then that is just the content of the file in that base 64 format. So it's quite a simple layout for what you're doing. You're effectively just going from, here's a bunch of files. I'm just going to put them all together with all of their content. And then when you pass that to the API, it can update your report or deploy it for the first time. I think this is the last slide. So putting everything together of the things that I showed you in this advanced section, what do I do when how can you replace the publish button fully? Well, start by splitting your Power BI reports into semantic models, and I would save them to folder Tabular Editor. But if you want to do it as Tyndall, you can do that as well. It'll just be slightly different at a later point. I'd then create my thin reports and I'd save them in PBIP, and I'd put them all in one big repository, but split into different subfolders. And I would have this for every report, every model that I run. So if I'm looking after 10 semantic models and 100 reports, I'd have 10 semantic models in one repo and 100 reports there. If they're all going into the same workspace, I would probably split it by workspace. But then you have the repo, separate folders, and then create a DevOps pipeline. So for model deployment. So when somebody makes a change to a semantic model, it's going to do this. So load the Tabular Editor CLI, run the best practice analyzer, deploy the model. That's exactly what that Tabular Editor blog told you how to do. So you can follow that and build that yourself using their already existing code. And then if you really want to get advanced, you can start writing your own scripts to refresh models or run unit tests. So for example, when it triggers, you could say, you could have a script that says there should be a measure called profit.json. If that doesn't exist, stop the deployment. So you could write unit tests like that and start thinking about checking things before you do. Deploy, sorry. There's that thin report deployment script I showed. I wrote that script, and then I built a DevOps pipeline that just runs that script. So it runs that script when you tell it to. And this is the last bit. You have a pull request. So when someone makes a pull request into the repo, you trigger the right one of these two pipelines, and it will then deploy the model or deploy the report, or you could set it to do all of them. So if somebody makes a change to one of your reports, you publish everything. Why? Well, if production is your repo and your repo is a Git repo, is in Git, you've got baked in change management, right? It means that you are always going to have this like a main branch that is protected, that nobody can deploy into unless they've done a pull request or there's a proper change process there, and you know that your Power BI reports are the same as that. So it's a way of making sure that everything in production is exactly what you expect it to be at all times. You can also automate your deployment. So as Jake was saying earlier, Control F, you can Control F across an entire series of reports. Say you've got 100 reports and you need to change from one shade of red to another because your branding has changed and you've not got that in a theme file, or you need to change a measure across every report you've got. Maybe you've decided, your finance department have decided we don't call it profit anymore, we call it something else, or maybe we don't use revenue anymore, we use sales. You can Control F across a whole repo, make the PR, hit done, and it will deploy all of them in seconds. And as I was sort of mentioning, you can build tests into this. So you could write scripts to do unit testing. You can make sure that specific pages exist on reports, so that nobody changes something or makes a model or a report not do what it's meant to do anymore. And that was a lot of content to get into. Like, I think I've gone over, but yeah, that's everything. Thank you. All of those QR codes there. I've also put a link to my LinkedIn. If you want to add me on LinkedIn and you've got any questions or anything, I'm always happy to talk about it. But yeah, any questions right now? Or is everybody's brain a bit fried from going from nothing to advanced stuff all in one talk? Hold on a second. Hey, Jake. Absolutely. Yeah.
You played around with Fabric CI/CD.
So when I originally wrote this talk and first gave it, Fabric CI/CD was announced 5 days later. So I'd finished I built all of the scripts for my company and everything to do this, and then Fabric CI/CD came out. If I was building it now, some of the Python scripts that I did in the middle would be replaced with things that are baked into Fabric CI/CD. So on that slide around, just go to it, the workflow. Let's just go up. This one. These can be done differently. You don't need to write the APIs now. You can call functions from Fabric CI/CD. So you can do a lot of the things in here automatically with Fabric CI/CD now. We don't have to do as much work, but you still need something you'll still need a script to orchestrate it in the right way, right? Yeah, it's tiny. So my version of this script is still relatively small. I think it's about 150, 200 lines, but it was all written before Fabric CI/CD, and they did a much better job of it than I did. So if I rebuild it, I will definitely use Fabric CI/CD. But yeah, if you're really interested in that, that's something that Kev Heather's got loads of stuff on his repo. It's really like this guy's repo. He's great. If you ever get a chance to see him speak, do. But he's also got all of his stuff on his repo, including his slides and all of his content. So definitely go and check it out. Blog is definitely. He's also got. I saw him speak at Kaylee a couple of weeks ago, and he's put the slides from that onto his repo already. That was a really good. It was slightly different the way he does things to the way I do them because of that separation of semantic models and thin reports. He tends to do them together, or most of his content is him doing it together, but that's all on there as well, and he does a much better job of explaining it than I ever will. So if you're interested, this is the place to start. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
How much of these what you described could actually be realized with the
Good question. The Tabular Editor 2 stuff, almost everything in Tabular Editor 2 you can do without a premium license. The stuff that you do need is editing stuff in production. So the deploying stuff into Power BI workspaces, you need a premium license for that. It doesn't have to be a full premium capacity. It can be a premium per user, or you could have an F2, like the smallest fabric capacity, can also do it because you just need the XMLA endpoint. So that stuff you can do everything other than deploying in Tabular Editor. So it's still worth downloading and trying and playing around with it because it just makes development faster. The stuff around the APIs, you would need you'd need at least an F2 or a premium per user account, but you don't need loads. So you could build the last bit of this in theory with a service principal with a premium per user subscription, I think. But you definitely could do it with an F2 as well. So an F2 is normally what I would suggest there of the smallest fabric capacity. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's not that expensive. $300 a month? Okay. Without reservation. Yeah, okay. So if you wanted to reserve it, you could probably get that for a couple of $100 a month. Which I know not every company has got that kind of budget, but if you are a really small business, then maybe you don't need to go all the way to this advanced stuff at the end. You're probably going to be okay with some of the simpler concepts, but yeah, when you get into massive.
Same as using the
Okay. I haven't tried. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it could, but I think still try it. Yeah. You'll definitely need I would definitely recommend having a service principal, but and even if you just give that a user license, that should be enough, I think. But yeah, off the top of my head, I'm not. You put me on the spot.
I'll take one more question. Good one.
how do you think that works? So like you have a journey, both your journey into like into some of the advanced field. Talking about enterprise, like multiple teams. The mixing in the like that. We're on that journey. We're somewhere between like intermediate. It's a little bit quite work as well. So I'm really enjoying the presentation. How do you think it works for small and medium companies?
I mean, I wouldn't build this if I worked at a small company. It's a bit overkill, right? I mean, it's a fine line, right? With what you just where you would start looking at building.
I used to be, because I did a very similar thing with a team of like 5. Because you build it once and then you just use it forever, and it saves loads of problems. So it actually, as long as you've got the time to build it, the amount of time not wasted on like, oh, which version are we on? I thought I'd fix that. You know, it you saves that. It's like increment. What's the word? It keeps building.
Yeah, incremental gains type thing. Yeah. No, if you are a small business and you're interested in it, absolutely go for it. I think the thing I was saying in terms of it maybe being overkill is just when I worked at a small business, we had 3 developers. We didn't at maximum, and none of us were particularly advanced. We didn't have the time or the capacity or the knowledge to build it. But if you have, and you're a small business and you want to do this stuff, it does have massive incremental gains. It's just when you're a huge organization, obviously those incremental gains are a lot bigger, and it becomes something it becomes more of a need rather than a nice to have. I think at a small organization, if it makes sense for your organization, absolutely go for it. But like, I wouldn't invest thousands of hours if you're a small team that's only got a little bit to deliver to the business, time to deliver reports to the business. That's ultimately where the value is, right? Delivering things to the business. And if it's going to take you away from doing that for ages, and you're a small team and you don't have the ability to absorb that, then there's a line there, right? Being pragmatic, but yeah, absolutely go ahead. You could, if you've got access to the tech that lets you do this, you've got ADO or GitHub, and you've got like GitHub Actions or whatever, go for it. Like it's not as high a barrier entry as it was when I first built this now, because of the Fabric CI/CD packages, because of some of the work that people like Kev have done. You can lift and shift that. You could buy it. I mean, if you really want to, my company can install it. Don't want to, right? But yeah, we can. There's multiple people who can do this, and you can follow them. So if you've got the time and energy to spare to do it, absolutely go for it. But yeah, make sure you're still delivering value to your business at the same time, because otherwise you're not going to pay the bills.
Right, actually, let's do